What's up everyone, welcome back to a new video on the Alien Algo channel. Today we will be getting straight into it. I will make this video a bit shorter because I think it's time to up the quality where we make these videos more structured and shorter. So with that having said up front, let's get into the trend scanner. This is the thing I built literally to catch the trends and to catch those reversals and find if we are inside a chop or inside a trend. What is a chop? This is a chop. This is a chop where the bands compress and they don't move a single bit. You see, they are just going sideways. Here you see a trend example where these ones start to move and we are inside a trend. Here they move, so it's a trend. Start to compress, bit of chop. They start to move back up, it's a trend. So, with this simple logic added, you already see this is your short-term trend and these are your medium to long-term trends. So, we see we are quite clearly up on the S&P. Same goes for the Nasdaq, same goes for the Dow Jones. This is still in chop. As you can see right here, see the difference between them. These are moving up. These are almost getting out of chop. These are clearly still inside a chop, meaning consolidating / just ranging price action. So let's apply the same logic to BTC USDT. Right here, you also see we are in a chop at this point. We break and retest that chop and we continue. Currently, we are holding that black wave. We closed one candle below it, but like you can see, like here, one close below is not enough of a confirmation. You want to see two closes below. So we want to see this candle reclaiming this black level, because otherwise I'm just leaning more towards that downside, where I do think we should hold a 100k, but if not, I do think this should be that logical level to look for deeper pullbacks if given. So when we do the same with ETH, we quite clearly see we flipped bullish here, started consolidating, retested it multiple times, and then we got that massive move towards the upside. Currently, we are still inside chop. How can we identify chop again? You see, these are just going sideways. They are not moving. This one is responsive to price. So, of course, price can be manipulated. These ones are related to volume. Volume cannot be manipulated, because if they do, it will show up in the order books giving volume. So these are quite simple. Here you can see chop. And let's take a trend. Here, a trend. Here, downwards move, downwards move. Both of them start to move sideways and we are inside a chop again. So this is pretty much like what we are seeing here, but then in reverse. When you just think of how these bands are moving, we are kind of inside this type of price action. So with that having said, now let's look at some technicals. I will quickly remove the alien arrow of trend follow. Super simple logic. Let's get into price action. So when we know the trend is up, I like to use the rounding example. Right here, we see a bit of rounding. When we look at this on a 1 hour, we quite clearly see that it is rounding off. And what more can we see? We see this low. This low here, we are unable to push through that low, which this would have given me a more valid scenario to be a little bit on the bearish side for lower time frames, but we are currently still holding this. So what do we see on those lower time frames? We are watching at this point, which also gave that little fake out, and here it started to give some resistance support, again. So this little box, I will quite put this right there. This, quite clearly see it here and here. So it's correlating with this candle. When we look at the downside, of course, because we have to be looking at both sides, we had this crucial point where we retested and we held, and currently we are unable to push through that level again, giving me a confirmation that bulls are kind of in control still, on those lower time frames at least. So I will put this level right here, and the one bear scenario I would have is where we don't push through this level, and instead we reject on this level and we sweep this level first. And with this level I mean this little wick, where we do something like this and then we go up. Where here everyone will say, okay, yes, we've had a break in character, we broke these lows, so we should go lower. But this really should be a liquidity grab if we don't manage to push above this. So this will be the play, or we will be playing this to the downside, where here we can flip those positions to the upside again. And when we look at those higher time frames, we simply see the quite same. So this really is your crucial level on the lower time frame and on the higher time frame. So with that having said, let's get into ETH. ETH, it has been just consolidating. It's just a new chop, as we already found on the chant follow. The 4 hour, it's even worse. You see, we're just compressing in between those. And when did I post this for the first time, this trend follow system? When we rejected from this and we got support on this, I stated we will enter chop. Because these bands don't cross the first time, they just barely. They barely do. Why do I know this? Because I built them. So these barely cross when they start to compress. They compress a bunch of candles before we flip it and we go back to the upside. So when this started to happen, when I saw this one coming down while this one was going up, I just stated we will get into chop mode. I'm quite sure this was in one of the first market outlooks I did on this channel. So if you want to look back and think I'm a liar, just find the proof yourself and deny it right there. So wanted to say this because it's quite incredible how simple this system works and how powerful it is. So when we look at those time frames, you see it's quite clearly in a chop, and I could just tell you using those EMAs. But when we look at this on a daily, because currently the daily is the most important to me, we see we've had this deviation, here deviation again. Let me draw it a bit normally. Right there, here, and here. So what is this? Of course, your 0 to 5 level, which are your range lows, meaning you should be a buyer at range lows. You're quite literally dumb to be shorting at range lows, unless you're of course talking about such a micro movement per scalp logic. So what can we conclude upon this? That we are still inside this chop. Where did we reject? These previous lows, where this was your low, you came back into it and you start to reject. So logically, what level do we want to be cleared? This right here. So I will make this blue so it doesn't screw with the rest of the levels. And weird enough, I think I will take this instead of the one closer. So I see this little point, you had semi-resistance here, came back, then we flipped it, then that trend started. When that crash happened, we got that support here. So for our lower time frame range, we are currently in on ETH. It's quite clear that we want this to be flipped. If it starts to reject, we want this to be swept, reclaimed, and back up. If not, there could be a chance of us taking all of these wicks out and then reversing. So I will be looking at this area to look for some longs, or we see the upwards possibility where we have a little bit more conviction and are able to play it with some more size. So with that having said, let's get into total free. Still looks shit. It is catching some support here on the lower time frames. As you can see, this current level where we are sitting at. So we would like to see this hold. Otherwise, odds just bleed a little bit more against the Bitcoin. But like I stated, I do think this is quite positive. I will go onto the volume levels in a bit. Where we now have the total free. Yeah, it just doesn't look that perfect. But like I stated, this is the low we want to see hold, otherwise just expect more bleed. For the total one itself, it looks a lot better. Right here we have a proper range low with a single deviation below it, as you can see. Quite sure this was a previous level as well. So this should be kind of crucial, and like I've shown here, there is one deviation below it on 1 day. So the same logic I already explained. With a deviation, you want to see an aggressive move, and the reclaim should be aggressive as well. So here we have one close below, but the second candle already closed back above, which is what we want to see with a deviation, because otherwise it's more like controlled selling, where you have a higher chance of going down even further. So this should be the crucial level. This should also be a crucial level for total free. And let's go onto the volumetric levels, where we stated, of course, yesterday that if volume does not keep pushing down here, now let me state it, of course. Oh, that's the wrong one, because how can we conclude this? Created these bars for a reason. You see the volume starts to dry up right here, multiple candles, and this could, of course, people say, yes, but here volume already dried up. No, it did not. Well, technically it did, but this is the exact controlled selling I am talking about. You want to see it being aggressive, and that buy to be aggressive as well. So that downside should be aggressive, and that upside should be aggressive as well. Here we only saw aggressive downside and zero aggressive upside, meaning this is controlled selling and not a proper deviation we want to buy. So this right here was that local bottom before we got that rejection at the top again. Where did we reject? Let's look at the volumetric levels again. Should be quite clear that this was your value area and also your Monday low. So this actually it was the previous Monday low. So this was your still stated it as Monday low. Well, it is, well, make it a little bit easier. Previous Monday low. So this is quite simply where we rejected again. What do we want to see hold? Just like I stated before, it's this area where we either want to see the sweep of this wick, or like I've shown here on those lower time frames. Yeah, the 309-minute chart does not exist. Here we want to see the reclaim of the zone, which currently does not look like it. So of course we have to keep the news in mind, but I don't really care that much about news, but the World War III stuff is kind of crucial, where if there is massive doubt, people will just panic sell. So even if you're the hands-on and I don't care about news type investor, this is the type of news that you kind of should care about, because you just know other people will care about it and will act upon the emotions they get from this news. So with that having said, guys, I hope you liked the video. Try to structure it a little bit more, where I explain it a little bit better. but in a shorter way. So with that having said, guys, I'll check you in the next video. Keep trading.